Hello, welcome to episode 3 of the Comic and the Counsel. I am Renee. That is Jonathan. Um, John, we have a question to answer, right? Someone emailed us a question.
Yes, Shane emailed us a question about, I think it was pertaining to the last thing we talked about.
Which was about, oh yeah, if a
So he's got a
heckler.
question about, well, it's actually kind of a contract question just in general, but he's referring specifically to playing shows as a band, or if you're the entertainment, what to do when somebody makes a promise about getting compensated. And you play the show, you provide the entertainment, and then they don't fulfill their quote guarantee to. And in some cases, he brings up a good point.
So I guess it would be
That
like,
they,
what's
yeah.
that?
So this is particularly about playing a show and being guaranteed like a cut of the door, right? So you don't know how much money is going to come in, but they can tell you it's going to bring 10, they're going to charge $10 at the door, and you'll get whatever percentage of that. And so he's asking basically what happens if you're in a situation like that, like you're in a band or some other form of entertainment, and you come to the place and they tell you just orally, maybe you just have a conversation. Of course, maybe it's just a text message, but you don't have a formal written agreement, a formal contract. And they say, here's the deal, and this is what you'll get paid after you perform, and what the legalities of that are. So there's basically two. And by the way, have you been in this situation? I mean, I think we both have, right? But
Probably. I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but that's a really good question. It's probably why everyone is always saying like it's always important to get things in writing, right? Because
yeah, and to get paid up front, right? Instead of holding it off. But a lot of people do this. And then what happens is maybe there's a contingency, like how many people come in the door, like how many tickets are sold. And the hope is that you'll sell a lot, and then I'll be happy to give you 20%. But what happens is the door manager, the whoever's booking the shows, they come way in. I mean, they come under their target, and then they don't want to pay the band because 20% is going to be like, they need that 20% to pay the bills for that night, right? So sometimes they'll stiff you. And if you're traveling, and we've done this before, like we went to one place in Ohio where the guy wasn't there and he had somebody else kind of managing it. And he was like, oh yeah, he didn't put up the sign and he's not here and he can't really pay you or whatever. And, it happens. And then there's small situations, not a ton of money at stake, but it's annoying and it's not fair. It's not right to lead people on like that. Cause we needed it just to get gas, Yeah. And I think our trailer and van got towed one time, and we needed like a couple $100 just to get the damn thing back. So basically there's two things here, like a contract in writing. Everybody says it's the best thing to do to get it in writing, and that is the best evidence of an agreement, of course. But that's actually not the rule under the law. You don't have to. The general rule is that you can have an oral contract or a written contract, and there's actually just a few exceptions as to when it has to be in writing to be enforceable. And there's, I think, about 6 specific contracts generally, and then some states might have some rules about rental agreements and a couple of other things, but it's a few types of contracts that have to be in writing. One of those would be like the purchase of a piece of land, real estate, a home,
right.
or contracts that take multiple years to fulfill. But it's a pretty select small group of contracts. But other than that, the general rule is that they can be in writing. So then the question would be, if it's a contract and it's just oral conversations, to be a contract in that situation, it would just mean that you both had to exchange something. And so in that case, it would be, I promised to come perform a show and you promised to pay me something. And it doesn't matter like how much it costs. He could promise you to pay you $2. But the law says it doesn't matter how little it is. A judge is not going to try to determine like what's a fair deal for you. That's up to you and the private party. So you just need to exchange something. So yeah, if somebody, exchanges something with you, if they say, I will give you $5 to play here, then they owe you that $5 if you come and play there, as long as you fulfill your obligations. And then there's a second question in the situation that Shane's bringing up, which is a very good thing for everybody to remember, which is that if you don't have a contract, because you don't have that like binding promise, the exchange of kind of bargained for exchange. If somebody makes you a promise and they have reason to know that you might be relying on it in a way that could end in a detriment to you, like they know that you'll be expending money or you'll suffer some loss by relying on that promise, they have reason to know that you will, and then they deny the promise after you've relied on it to your detriment, then you could sue them on a different theory that isn't a breach of contract theory. It's called promissory estoppel, which is basically saying, we're not going to let you deny that you made that promise because you made a big promise in a way that kind of enticed somebody to come and bear some expense in a way that wouldn't be fair to let you get away with. So even if you didn't have a contract, but somebody knew that you were driving, in the case that we just talked about, they knew we were coming there from Ohio, from South Carolina, then we'd have a good claim that we had relied on a promise to our detriment, even though we didn't have a legal contract. So it's a different theory, but those are basically the two things that you think about in that situation. So thank you, Shane, for that question. It's a very good question.
Nice, good answer, Jonathan. That was very thorough.
That's what I'm here for.
And as a comedian, Shane, I say, get that money.
Yes, exactly. It's a good question, and I was going to say, I hope you recover that money, and then you give me part of it.
Yeah,
at least 30%.
At least. Yeah. Again, guys, if you have a question, you can email us at comicandcounsel@gmail.com, and we will answer your question. And also, like us and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Yeah, be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all these insights.
Exactly. A thing that I wanted to talk about, which I think is interesting, is like recently, Cosby was in the news again, and as a comedian, a lot of people are talking about it in my world. And I was talking to a friend of mine a little before that about, somehow it came up with, like, I think it was music actually, but essentially the topic is, when or how, or is it okay to separate the art from the artist? Um, because, people might be like, oh, you still watch the Cosby Show, or you still listen to this musician, or you still do that. It's like,
yeah,
is that okay? Is it good? Is it bad? I myself, I'd naturally, I think, want to say, you got to separate the art from the artist. I mean, there are like different levels though and parts to it, right? Like, at least for me, for example, uh, I think it'd be kind of weird to go maybe see Bill Cosby if he was performing now. That to me is weirder than watching his show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's different, like, because it's, one person versus a group of people, an old TV show, as opposed to a person now, like, so I don't know what I'm looking like, knowing, like, everything that's going on, and
Well, yeah,
moving
because I mean,
forward with, like, hanging out with someone now and, like, being their friend now, as opposed to in the past, kind of feeling, I guess you could say.
well, yeah, and the other thing is that with a show like that was on for at least a decade, I think it was more than a decade, but it's one of the more successful shows. And Bill Cosby was kind of the impetus for that show, as these things are created, right? They kind of created around the comedian, and he had one of the best stand-up careers, I think, in history. And I still think he's funny as a comedian.
Mm.
But the show, what's really important is that show wasn't made great just because of him. There
Mm.
were a lot of people
Right.
producers, writers, the actors. I mean, God, there were so many people on that show. Like Lisa Bonet was on there. She's now like she's married to Lenny Kravitz, and she's had like a pretty fruitful career, I think. And you know, like Felicia Rashad was getting criticism because she kind of stuck up for him, but like she was a big part of the show. And sometimes people have even quoted lines from him that are actually hers. Cause I grew up watching the show because my dad liked it a lot. And so people confuse what was even Bill Cosby's versus what was everyone else's contributions. And you may have seen there was a story not too long ago about I can't remember the character's name, but he was like working in Trader Joe's recently. Do you
Oh
remember that?
yeah, I heard
And
something
he
about
was a
that.
big part of the show too. Like he added a whole new element of comedic tension and you know, resolution between him and Bill Cosby's character. And yeah, people were picking on him for working in the grocery store. So that's what I think about. You know, I think about this guy we found out has done some bad things. And then it's kind of a shame to just wipe away all the work that those people did who had nothing to do with it. You know, they're
Yeah,
funny or
exactly. And also like if you're like a person like a fan of the show, right? And you like you said you like grew up watching it and you liked it as a kid, right? And then like I think it's okay for you to like let's say you go back, while you're at home like after we were done with this, podcast, you watch, I don't know, a couple old episodes or something like that, and you enjoy it still because you liked it when you were a kid. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you liked it when you were a kid before you knew anything, right? So like you're not
yeah,
a bad person for enjoying something that you have no knowledge of, right? Like especially when it's I feel like it's a little different again, like especially when it's something like music. Like I was listening to Wagner. I don't know if you know who he's a composer from early 1900s, late 1800s, I believe. Um,
yeah, like the 19th century. Yeah.
and he has a really famous opera, and it's like the first 2 minutes of that have been studied, and as someone who studied music in school, like you listen to that and you study it in school, and it's some of the like best 2 minutes of music I've ever heard, at least for classical style music goes, and I really enjoy it. And then someone recently mentioned that he was a Nazi or apparently was affiliated with Nazis or something like that,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh,
Sympathize.
is it okay that I still like that music? And I think, well, yeah, I listened to it decades ago before I even knew he was potentially affiliated with that. And also it's a little different, I think, because it's like instruments that he put together to make certain sounds. It wasn't like, I don't know, I feel like it would be
Yeah.
different if it was like him singing just himself.
Yeah.
Like
It's not like spoken word album, right?
yeah,
Not just him like talking. Yeah.
it's like he put these like different ingredients together and you enjoy that, and then decades later you find out like, like what if it was like like if it was like my favorite piece of all time, like, oh, I'm not allowed to enjoy that piece anymore because of him,
Yeah.
being a bad guy. It's like, well, I don't know. I listened to it, like I said, decades before I knew anything. And it's like, maybe this is a crazy example, but it's like, like let's say that hamburgers are your favorite food ever, and you find out the person who created the hamburger like murdered 7 people. Like, are you gonna stop eating burgers? Like,
Or they're racist, right?
that's somehow worse.
Right, right. No, yeah, but we've known some people who've made racist cheeseburgers.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's a reference to South Carolina.
Yeah. But with art, I mean, what I love about art in general, whether it's like a comic book, an opera, anything creative, is that what's so great about creating stuff is it's not, you put it out there and it's not really just about you. It's about showing people a little bit of what you have inside of you. And then we all make our own meaning out of it. So like every songwriter you know that you love, whatever your favorite song is, it's not their favorite song. I promise you. Right? Like
Not the
their
artist
favorite,
favorite.
yeah, the artist's favorite song, like "The Sounds of Silence" by uh, Paul
Paul
Simon.
Simon.
It's like Simon and Garfunkel that did it, but it was Paul's song, and you know, it starts like you know, "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Mm.
And people put all this meaning, like it means suicide to people. It means all this stuff. The reason he wrote that is because when he was young, like in the Bronx or Brooklyn, I can't remember which neighborhood he lived in, but He just liked to go sit in his bathroom and like turn off the lights because there were no windows and it like block out the sound. So like it wasn't really that deep. It was just somebody appreciating being kind of alone and like at peace with their thoughts. But that can be transposed into so many other situations in life.
Oh,
And so
totally.
yeah, you hear a song about somebody breaking up with somebody, but it reminds you of like a friend who died.
Hmm.
The sentiment, whatever it is, sadness, being maudlin or macabre or whatever it is, it's all universal. So whatever it is you're going through or they're going through, they're different, but like the sentiment, it's all the same. And that's kind of like what brings us together. And that's why I think
Mm.
the art should stay separate from the actual artist.
Right. No, totally. Yeah, I agree with that. That is funny how people will take a song and just like yeah, really analyze it to mean something. But I mean that's a cool thing about art, right? Is like however you want to interpret it and like and take from it what you want, and like if it makes you enjoy it more, then yeah, so be it. Whatever. Like you could be like, oh, he's speaking about a girl for that he was dating
Yeah.
or something like that, right? But really he's thinking about just a dark bathroom. Like like, hey Paul, what did were you singing about suicide and death? And
Yeah.
he's like, nah, man, I just was taking a shit with the lights off and
Yeah.
it was cool.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. um, but there's yeah, I mean, there's everyone knows what I mean when I say that. Like there's countless examples. There was a really funny one that's a lot less serious than that one, where Taylor Swift had a song and it was like I got a long list of ex-lovers and I'll write your name. So she's saying like I got a lot of people that have been in my past and I'll write you down as the next one. But apparently, I don't know if you heard this, but a lot of people in America, go figure, they thought that she was saying, I've got a lot of Starbucks lovers, and I'll write your name, because they write your name in the cup,
Wow.
and there's like the sound of a pin clicking in the recording, and it's it's well timed, it's a good sound, because she's like, and I'll write your name, click. And so people, a bunch of people were like, oh, she's gonna like write her ex's name on Starbucks because she's a Starbucks girl and so am I, and it's like, yeah, it's all about that. But that happens all the time. Like I said, I mean, whatever your favorite song is, it's not theirs and it's not what you think it means. Uh,
Starbucks.
but that's
I mean, oh, the Taylor Swift comes on later saying she's like, guys, I don't like Starbucks. I am a coffee coffee and tea bean. What is it? Coffee bean? Oh, coffee bean and tea leaf girl. I prefer coffee bean all day.
so besides the Cosby Show, I mean, there's been other examples of this. Like what are some other ones that
Michael Jackson.
oh, Michael Jackson, yeah. Um, yeah, he was a different kind of guy.
Uh,
But I remember when he died. His death was definitely one that I remember exactly what I was doing and where I was. Because I think it was 2009, and
I feel like everyone got a text message or something from someone who
yeah,
knew about it.
and yeah, and Michael's he had a weird life. I mean, he was from the time he was like 5 years old, he was in nightclubs. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I think I'm not going to throw away Michael's music anytime
Well, that's
soon.
another thing too, is like those productions, they're like, like you said, there's a lot of people that went into making those. There's music
Right.
producers, there's songwriters, right? There's all these musicians that make it a whole thing. It's not just him and only him
Yeah.
at all. So, you know,
And then I think probably the worst one was Seinfeld. Do you remember that?
Se- Seinfeld or you
Yeah.
mean Kramer?
Well, yeah, I mean Kramer, but like what it did for Seinfeld, Michael Richards.
What it did for his career?
Well, I mean, negatively, like, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's been in things since then, but I think with that particular cast, for the most part, they pretty much just did that, I think, right? Well, no,
No, no, no. So I'm just going back to the same, back to art and the artist,
mhm.
about what happened with Seinfeld and Michael Richards. Whether people feel like they can watch Seinfeld now.
Oh, well, yeah, the
Like,
show, I mean, that was way after the show anyway, right? Like,
yeah.
it wasn't like that's another thing though with Cosby, that's kind of different where like apparently he was doing, bad things during that time, whereas like Kramer's thing was a specific instance, right? Like way after the show was done. So it's like that doesn't even like, yeah, it's way different. It's like, yeah, you can still
Well,
watch.
yeah, I mean, it's different, but I mean, I think people can assume that that sentiment was probably, around. And so they
Okay,
were kind of
that's
looking for
fine, but
Jerry.
also like, like we were just talking about, there's so many people involved in that show, and it's not
Oh,
his
sure. Yeah. Well, that's my point, actually. And I heard Jerry Seinfeld say this, I think, before that even happened about, well, it may have been after, I don't know, but he was interviewed. I think he was on Conan, or actually, I think it was Stephen Colbert, about the art and the artist. And he said about Bill Cosby, he was like, I totally separate the two. And so I assume he does the same with Michael Richards. But that was a horrible video.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think the same thing. It's, you got to separate that person from the whole TV show as a whole for sure.
So did you do any shows this week at the Comedy Store?
I did over the weekend on Saturday, up in the belly room. It was a good show. I did 10 minutes. I went second. Um,
And the belly room is a
it's
little bit different.
Yeah, so we have three rooms there. We have the original room, the main room, and the belly room. And the belly room is the smallest room. It's upstairs. It holds about, I think, 80 is the max capacity. But I went second, so still early. It wasn't completely full by then, but I would still say there was like, I'd say like 40, maybe 50 people up there. I don't know, but yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it. The funniest part probably was after my set outside. There was a guy smoking a cigarette, and he like called me over by him, and he was like, "Hey man, that joke you do about farting, that was that was really funny." I do a joke about farting in
Classic.
public, which is a true story. I was at a bar with a friend of mine, and you know, it was like it just like kind of came out like, and I was like, "Oh shit." um, but I tell that
Was
joke, and then
was
he
it audible? Sorry.
no, no, thank God.
Okay. Silent but deadly. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely deadly. But no, but it was funny because out of all the jokes I told, he was like, that's the one that he really liked because he was like, man, I fart at work all the time, and and he said he works with machines, and he was like, yeah, man, I fart, and I like blame it on the machines. I'm like, I don't know what that smell is, man. I think it's the machines. I'm like, kind of like what you said about people will take a song and say whatever they want with it. But I guess, he was like, oh, that's, I wonder if like all my jokes, he was kind of like, eh. And then he heard me say that I farted and he was like, hell yeah, I love this guy.
Yeah.
I fart too. That's what's up.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it's all about, man. It's relatability. When I was in law school, I remember posting a thing about when Nelson Mandela died, and I had a professor that like had lived in South Africa and had worked with the government there, and I just posted. It was just kind of an informational thing, right? Just little trivia that I had learned about the whole situation. Like nobody cared, right? And I just have followers in South Carolina, and it was either the day before or the day after. I think I posted something like, "I love pizza," and everybody just fucking loved it, right? They were just like, "Me too. I totally relate to that. Pizza."
Yeah.
That other shit, I don't know what your problem is, but just keep posting the pizza stuff.
Yeah, it's like you could spend, you know, years of all this hard work on like something you
Yeah.
crafted, and people
You
are like,
discover like a new animal in Antarctica, and people are like, yeah,
"It's okay," and then you're like,
yeah,
"Man,
good
I just
job.
ate the pizza and fucking took a shit," and people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah."
You're like, I just had sex with a model, and everyone's like, oh my God, you should be president. What the hell? Why have we not talked to you before?
You're like, "What about my new discovery in the Arctic?" And they're like, "Who? What? No, no, dude, you had sex." uh,
Well, so you've got at least one new fan. Did he add you on Instagram?
no, I should have told him to, huh?
Yeah, it's what you got to do these days, man. I was in a class, like a lot of professional people with licenses, you have to take classes every year to like keep up your license. If you're a doctor or like a nurse or a lawyer. And I was in one and they were talking about, marketing for lawyers, how you kind of, present yourself to people to show that you're open for business and like what you have to offer. And it's a very like word of mouth business. People mostly still make decisions based on, the fact that they've known somebody who used you before for the same kind of case. Um, And so in this class, they're talking about marketing law firms, especially like smaller law firms that don't have, decades of presence in a community. And they were saying, that a lot of people now, if they're looking for a lawyer and you don't have an Instagram page for your dog, that they won't hire you, right? Because that's what everyone's looking for. They want to know like how you can entertain them while they're sitting on the couch, flipping through the slideshow of social media. So
Right. I mean, something probably he probably left quickly or something, but yeah, I definitely should have. He's like, "Oh, you fart too? Hey, follow me on Instagram. We'll fart together." All right, guys, that was episode 3 of the Comic and the Counsel. Once again, you can email us any questions. Email comicandcounsel@gmail.com, and subscribe and like us and all that good stuff. We love you.
so
Later.
much.